All right, so this is exciting. This is our we just released this long planned, long gestating unit plan on money and inflation. And so this is the first webinar kind of about the inflation unit plan. So we're excited that it's out there in the world. We are excited to get any feedback you have. So if you are using it or you have feedback based on what you see in today's webinar, please let us know. Please get that to us because we'll always be making changes. Like with all our lesson or unit plans, we're always sort of updating them or changing them or adding things to them or taking things out of them. If we hear, okay, this day is too long, we may, move stuff around. So we're excited to get this out into the world. As I mentioned, this is the high school unit plan for money and inflation. Okay, this is me. I don't know. So there's some new names in the participant list. I'm a curriculum designer here at MRU. This is also part of my title, economics evangelist. Spreading the gospel of economics. I'm not really a fan of inflation, as I'm sure nobody is really. But maybe people with fixed rate mortgages are fans of inflation, so I guess. But obviously, too much inflation would, collapse the economy. So they'd be bad even for them. All right. So let's start. Just as a fun little activity, just go ahead and drop in the chat. Obviously, we've had pretty bad inflation over the past couple of years. What is, a crazy price increase that you've noticed, the past year? Something you can't believe how expensive it got. Go ahead and put in the chat anything you've seen in the past couple of years that you'd like to share. Okay, we got eggs. Oh, so make sure you have your chat setting. There's a little chevron above where you type your messages in. Make sure it's set to everybody, so everyone can see airfares, daycare. Okay, so hold on a sec. Let me just. Okay, so eggs right now, obviously going crazy. Airfares. Yeah, airfares were especially expensive for me, last summer. Daycare, thankfully, my child is out of the daycare range. Tortillas in Mexico because 100% increase. Okay, that is insane. Gas, eggs, butter, trail mix. Oh man, trail mix my favorite. I haven't noticed that much of a price increase in trail mix. I usually buy the small ones though. Used cars, yeah, beef. Rental cars. Okay, we have Pakistan oil prices, ammunition for deer hunters. Wow. Oh, James Mitchell. That's mine right there. I can't. Every time I go out to eat with my wife, it's like no matter where we go, the bill is always double. I feel like a double what it used to be. Everything at the Dollar Tree is $125. Yeah. Okay. And then Dustin, make sure you have it set to everyone, unless you just want us, the host and the panelists, to see. Rent. Yeah, so everything. Basically everything, all the stuff, the basics, all the food, housing, cars. So, it's funny about teaching inflation. And I don't know how long people have been teaching. So I've been teaching since when did I start teaching? 2014, maybe 2015. I started teaching. And what was funny is inflation was always sort of the thing that I put last. It wasn't that interesting. Students, weren't that into it because we'd had, whatever, inflation was 2%, less than 2%, for most of my lifetime. And it just, wasn't very salient to the students. But obviously, the past 2 years, we've had, we've seen all these increases in prices. And all of a sudden, it's something that students are interested in, they want to know about. And so, hence the unit plan. Hence, we prioritized inflation as the next unit plan we were going to do after we did our trade. Trade was our last one. All right, and so if you haven't seen it already, basically here's the layout of the unit plan. We start with money, and so we spend the first 2 days on money because it's important to understand money and important to understand, what is the purpose of money and how we got to our current like monetary system in order to understand where inflation comes from. And also just in general, people love money. I mean, people love money, obviously, like, you know, actual money, but people love money in a theoretical sense. Like students, at least in my experience, students are always, you know, asking questions about money. You know, where does money come from? Why is money like this? And so it's, you know, it's fun to just to do these first 2 days on money. Dustin, so I'll share. So all these docs, like the slides, like in the next, I'd say couple of days, maybe not tomorrow, but definitely by Thursday, you will get an email with the slides and with like the certificate of completion for the PD hour. So I haven't shared these slides, but you know, you will have them in a few days. And then also I'll give you a link to, you know, all this specific unit plan at the end. All right. So, all right, that's sort of the shape of the unit plan. This is our sort of the main doc. If you get the unit plan, this is the main doc that has sort of links to all the different, you know, documents that you need. And then we always have the Science of Learning. So for those of you that have come to lots of MRU webinars, you know, maybe you've gone to the Science of Learning webinar, but we really believe in the Science of Learning, like the cognitive science, that shows the different techniques that really encourage lifelong learning or long-term retention of information. So this sort of, you know, highlights the different techniques that we're using in each of these days. Okay, and if you want to get it, actually, I'll put this here for those of you. I'll put this in the chat if you're interested. This is just a link that if you'd like to get it, if you don't have it already, that's the unit plan. And again, I'll give this to you at the end as well. Okay, so for the training, or for today's hour, what I thought I'd do is just sort of go through each day and kind of highlight 2 things from each day. And so I have, you know, like a fun stuff, like something fun that we put in there, or I don't know. It depends on your definition of fun. I think it's fun. And then I'm going to highlight either a video that we made, or an interactive that we made. So we have 3 new interactives that we developed for this unit plan. And so, you know, for those of you that maybe already have like the way you teach, for those of you that already have like, okay, this is how I teach inflation. You know, you don't necessarily have to adopt the whole unit plan. You can like take an interactive here, take a video here. You can pick and choose, but it might be useful, you know, just to go through it, you know, on your own to figure out what you want and what you don't want. We typically, our unit plans are based on, someone's asking how long, typically about 45-minute class periods. But, you know, you can always like lengthen and shorten that depending on your needs. Okay, so day one, again, we're going to start with money, and we're going to ask, you know, a very kind of like stoner type question, but what is money? Like what, you know, what is it? You know, like what do we need it for? And to motivate this, at least I think this is fun. We just sort of ask the students, what was the most important primitive invention? So you want to think, you know, real, you know, thousands of years ago. And so, you know, answers you may get: fire, the wheel, I don't know, the lever. Angel is saying fire. In the lesson plan, in this first day, we will make the case, or we'll try to make the case, that it is money. So, you know, we don't think of money as invention, or we don't necessarily think of money as a piece of technology, but that's really what it is. I mean, money is this thing that, you know, humans invented. And what's really interesting is you go all over the world, you see money is being developed in many, many societies. You know, they develop their own money, and it's all sort of using and serving the same purposes. So, you know, you open this with the class and they're going to say fire, they're going to say the wheel. I don't know what they'll say, but you're going to say, no, it's money. We think money is the most important primitive invention. And for those of you that have taught the functions of money before, money serves all these purposes, specifically these three functions. It's a medium of exchange, so you can use it to trade goods and services, which can be very, very helpful. It solves that double coincidence of one. So if we're trading, I no longer have to have something that you want. We can use money instead. It's a store of value. And so I can transfer wealth to my future self by storing it. Or I could borrow money, which is basically transferring wealth from my future self to me. So basically allows you to move your assets around in time. And it's a unit of account. So it's a way of keeping track of things, or being able to compare different goods and services via prices. So it serves all these functions. And like I said, it's really a human invention. It's not like, you walk around and there's money growing on trees. It's something that humans have to invent. And in many places, it was developed independently. And so hopefully, that's the main message of day one, is understanding how money solves all these problems. And it's really a piece of technology. And so we developed an interactive. Go to it, and let me give you the link as well, that tries to teach this lesson. So you all can go to this link and play along as well. Let me just show you how it works. So it's going to prompt you with a scenario, and you're going to have to figure out what function is money serving in this scenario, in the bolded part of the scenario. So just do a couple, I'll do the first three to show you. And so this is to teach the functions of money. So as I mentioned, money has three functions: store of value, unit of account, medium of exchange. So start with this first scenario. Jack is a poor farmer. He keeps his savings in a jar. So he has his money, store of value. Syed's saying store of value. That is the correct answer. Okay. And then we'll get a little explanation here. We always want to give that elaborative feedback to say, all right, yes, it's correct. But even if you guessed, you should know why it's the right answer. And so, Jack is effectively transferring his wealth to his future self. So this is a store of value. Okay. Next step. So Jack goes to town and he uses his money to buy magic beans. In this scenario, we got store of value, unit of account, medium of exchange. So that is here, since he's trading the money for something, the magic beans, medium of exchange. And again, we get that elaborative feedback. All right. Next up, Jack plants the beans and they grow into a huge beanstalk. He climbs the beanstalk and finds a castle filled with treasures, diamonds, rubies, and gold coins. What functions are the coins serving here? So again, this is going to be a store of value. All right. Jack calculates the value of the various treasures. The gold coins are worth 100,000, the rubies 2 million, and the diamonds 10 million. Realizing the diamonds are worth the most, he stuffs them in his pockets. So we have gold coins are worth 100,000, rubies 2 million, diamonds 10 million. This is a little tricky, but the purpose of money here is a unit of account. So it's giving us the relative values of these items. And again, the unit of account is probably the hardest for students to understand, but it is still a useful function. Basically, it allows you to compare things. Before money, it's hard. How do I compare a boat, to a tree? Or how do I compare a boat to a car? Well, with a price, it gives me a base point of comparison. So that's the function that money is serving here. It's giving this base point of comparison. So it is indeed a unit of account. Okay, so I'll give you 4 minutes. You can play through the rest. Go ahead and drop your score in the chat when you're done. No shame in not getting 10. Just want to let's give you a chance to play with the interactives. Like I said, give you about 3 to 4 minutes. All right, okay, we can start back up again. See some 9s, see some 10s. Dustin's wondering when Jack has to pay taxes. Well, that's why it's a fairy tale. It's a fairy tale because there's no taxes. I mean, that's the happy part about it. All right. yeah, some 9s and 10s. Yeah, it can be tricky. So there's no shame in getting a 9 or an 8. All right, but anyways, this functions of money. At least I haven't seen it functions of money interactive. So, like I said, we tried to develop one and free to use. So again, if you don't adopt the whole thing, you could still use the interactives. This is my personal favorite interactive from the unit plan. So I guess they all get worse from here, in my opinion. I mean, they're all great. They're all great, but this is my favorite. Okay, all right. So that's day 1, basically teaching the students the functions of money. Day 2, we want to think about what makes like good money. What items could you use as money? And the point of this one is really to give the history of money. Because we take money for granted. We sort of take our current, monetary system for granted. We just sort of, okay, yeah, you got this paper money, you traded it, it all works. But it's important to understand, how we arrived at our current system, because ultimately that's going to be crucial to understanding where inflation can come from. So in this day, basically, we talk about, the characteristics of money, like what makes, good money. Money has to be durable. It has to be portable. It has to be countable. And so we talk about all those different characteristics of like why, and it has to be scarce, you can't be just things that are just, all over the place. And so, we talk about those characteristics and we go through, history and say, look at the different things that were used as money. And the fun stuff is that we start with these jumbo honey buns from Hostess. And we asked the students, would this work as money? So we said, could we use honey buns as money? And the answer is yes. Yeah. As Syed is saying in the chat. Yeah. And in fact, it is. So in some prisons, honey buns are used as money. They fulfill all those characteristics of money, that they're durable, they're going to last a while. Yeah, they're durable thanks to preservatives. There's like a urban myth that a Twinkie like will last like, I don't know, 4,000 years or something. So they're fairly durable. And they're portable, at least in the context of prison. You can get them around. They're scarce. I mean, like, they're hard to smuggle in. There's a certain amount, and then they're countable, like, a honey bun's a honey bun, so we can use them. And so they actually are used, or at least in one prison, they were used. This was the currency in the prison. Again, this is to get students sort of thinking like, oh, I guess, different things can be money. It's not a given that, we're going to have dollars. So, you may have heard of like weird types of money throughout the world. You can go ahead and put whatever weird types of money you've heard of in the chat. We try to touch on a bunch of weird ones in the lesson plan. But if you've heard of any ones, you can go ahead and put it in the chat. I mean, maybe the most famous is the big stones in the Isle of Yap. Cigarettes, yeah. So cigarettes are used. Becca is saying cigarettes. But cigarettes, yeah, of course, in prison camps are used as, in World War II, were used as money. A fun video in this lesson that we found. Tally sticks. I'm gonna have to look that up. I haven't heard of that one. And then a fun video we found. It's actually unlisted on YouTube. It's from Slate. This is a really, really fun video. So you think, and I don't know why it's unlisted. I don't know why it's not, Slate isn't putting it out there. But so if you go through different, if you go through history, you go to different societies, often precious metals, particularly gold, is used as money. I mean, we were on the gold standard until the 30s. And so why gold? And so this video is so cool. Like what they do is they get a chemist. Where's our chemist? So they get a chemist, and he basically goes through the whole periodic table. And he basically shows why you couldn't use all these other ones as money, and why of all the different elements, gold makes the best money. So it's super, super fun video that we found. And it basically tells you, all right, this is why gold is sort of universally used as money, and why it makes good money. All right. So that's day 2. So we figured out the purposes of money, the functions of money. We figured out what makes good money. And in this lesson plan, we've taken you through the history to our current system where we have paper money, where, you know, the money doesn't stand for anything. It's just it's fiat money backed by the government. And actually, if you think, we don't even have paper money really anymore. We have digital money. You know, I think it's like 80% of transactions are just digital transactions. So we are even going beyond paper money into just pure, you know, ones and zeros being transferred. And that's kind of fun, I think, for students to understand how we got to our current situation. And of course, this is all to kind of set up inflation. Why does inflation happen? Okay. And, you know, there's lots of different, you know, in the short term, there could be lots of different, you know, reasons for inflation, but, you know, long-term, overall, big picture, inflation fundamentally comes from printing too much money, which we have the ability to do now because of the monetary system. Because we have fiat money, the government can just print up a bunch of new money, or as it happens in the present, they can push a button and a bunch of new digital money is created. So that's, you know, there's lots of nice features of digital money that we go through in this day, but the downside is you can have inflation if you create too much money. And so there is maybe one of the most famous games to play in the classroom is the inflation auction. And so this is another resource that we have at MRU. We just collected the top 5 games. Will we address the issue of printing money and digital money? So Juan is asking, will we address the issue of printing money and digital money? So we talk about, you know, the difference between paper money and digital money. And then we talk about how the government has the power to, you know, to create, new money. And, you know, the fundamental issue with that is inflation. Anyways, so these are the top 5 like games you can play in class, and this is the inflation auction, which is fairly famous. And if you've gone to the top 5 MRU webinar, we kind of go through the game in depth. But if you haven't played the game, it's super fun. But what you do is you take 3 items and you auction the same 3 items off twice. And the second time you auction them off to your students, you increase the money supply. So you hand out money to your students. And then the second time you do it, you hand everyone double the amount of money they got before. And what the students should see, or how it should work, is in the auction, the prices should double in that second round. And this is a nice illustration of the relationship between the money supply, how much money is out there, and prices. And so even though we're talking about the same 3 goods in both these rounds of the auction, the prices should be double in that second round, because we've doubled the money supply. And hopefully you start the class with this, and hopefully this just firmly establishes the relationship between money supply and prices. And of course, increasing prices is inflation. And then we have the video. I think I have it queued up here. Then we have our video from the day, which is a video that we made at MRU, which covers hyperinflation in Zimbabwe. Okay. Yeah, so this is one of my favorite videos as well. And we are currently having a contest where we're giving away these. We got a bunch of these Zimbabwe dollars. So we got a bunch of these like Zimbabwe billion-dollar bills. And so we're giving them away in a contest. Yeah, we got a bunch of these basically. These, So that's like the featured video for day 3. MRU swag. I have, at the end so Eric Fields is asking about MRU swag. So I do have these, like I have these Econ Nerd stickers that we have. We have the Mo Money, Mo Inflation stickers, with the invisible hand stickers. So at the end of today, for our final interactive, I'll send some stickers to the winners. All right. And maybe I'll send some Zimbabwe dollars to the winner too. I have some. So, all right. So that's day 3. We talk about inflation, where it comes from. And then in day 4, we try to figure out, all right, how do we measure this? How do we measure inflation? And how do we capture this change in the prices? And of course, if you taught this before, this is all about the CPI. And this is something fun from the lesson. This shows you the change in prices of various goods and services over time. And so, everything above 0% has gone up in price over time. Everything below 0% has gone down in price over time. Oh, Michelle, you won the Econ Nerd. So Michelle's in the chat saying you won the Econ. So we have these Econ Nerd sweatshirts that we only give out just very, very, very rarely. So we gave them out at the CEE conference. But yeah, those are super rare. So we're not giving those out. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, this is the graph sort of showing the long run change in various prices. And, you can see some things have really gone down in price, like toys. Like, I don't know if you all have kids, but it's like, toys, maybe it doesn't seem like toys are cheaper, but they must be cheaper. Because it seems like the kids just get so much toys now at birthdays or and Christmases. My house is just like, I have one kid and it's just over like there's toys everywhere. It's just, I don't even know where they come from half the time. And I always have to I move them to my strategies. I move them to the garage when my kid isn't looking. And then if he doesn't notice the toy's gone for like a month or two, then I move it to the Goodwill. So I have like a staging area where I'm slowly getting the toys out of my house. Yes. Oh yeah. And then Dustin's pointing out, yes, you have these toy savings, but here we have childcare, which has really gone up in price. Okay. All right. And so this is just to give students, an idea of the long run trends and what we can do once we can use the CPI to adjust these prices to really compare things over time. And this is the interactive. Oops, where did it go? What's going on here? There we go. And so this is the interactive that we developed. I'll put this in the chat again for y'all to play. So this is the interactive we developed for this day, where students have to compare prices over time. So they're going to take a price from the past, adjust it to the present, and try to understand what's cheaper. So have Air Jordan's gone up or down in price after we adjust for inflation. And so again, I'll let you play through this. You don't have to do the calculation. You can just take a guess. And it's just for you to see the interactive. So I'll give you, 3 minutes to play through this, just to see the different goods. And, again, this is just to illustrate how to adjust prices over time. And again, just drop your score in the chat if you'd like. Again, like I was saying, just guess on these. You don't have to get your calculator out and do the calculation. So no shame in doing poorly, but again, just want to give you a chance to play around with it. So yeah, I'll give you like 3 minutes. So first of all, I see some pretty good scores, 8 and 9, no 10s though. Paul Rudd got you, Dustin. Everyone likes Paul Rudd until he shows up in a econ inflation interactive. Let's see the students experts at inflation. The chips are good. Yeah, the chips are probably good comparison. Shrinkflation, we're all familiar with after these past couple of years. Also, there's another one, like another term. So shrinkflation is when there's less in the package, and then there's another term that people use, like skimpflation, where it's the same product but the quality is worse. So I've noticed this in terms of like service at places. Like service at places has really gone down. And okay, and then Eric wants a econ nerd sweatshirt in the black market. Well, I don't know. Maybe Eric, if you run into me at a conference or something, maybe we can come to an agreement. All right. Okay, so hopefully you enjoyed this this interactive. We tried to choose fun items. My personal favorite in this one is the tooth. How much money the tooth fairy is giving to kids, which was shocking to me. That comes from like a survey that I guess dentists run. And the kids are just making out like bandits these days. Cheap toys. They're getting paid so much for their teeth too. All right. Okay. So we've covered basically the history of money and how that matters for inflation, like how our digital dollars or fiat money can lead to inflation. Then we've covered how do we measure it. And then, every time I cover, a measurement like GDP or unemployment or something, I think it's always important to note, like, all right, this measurement's not perfect. Like, it has some biases, it has some things that it doesn't necessarily capture. And then that's okay, because no measurement is going to be necessarily perfect. And so, in this day we have another video that kind of goes through, how to measure inflation. And we also have the activity. This is super fun. I think it's super fun. And so this is a famous, I don't know if you've seen it before. This is a famous Radio Shack ad from 1991. And what is super cool about this ad is basically everything in this ad is in a iPhone or smartphone in the present. So you got a phone, you got a computer. I guess a radar detector isn't in there, although maybe there's an app for radar detectors. You have like a phone answering machine, a phone here, video camera, speakers, CD player, alarm clock. Anyways, and so, one of the biases in the CPI, the CPI is measuring changes in prices over time. And so one of the biases is that, it has a hard time dealing with new goods, completely new goods. Because if you recall how the CPI works, they basically build a basket of goods that households consume, like the average household consumes, and they keep the basket consistent over time. So the CPI has a hard time addressing, brand new goods that come out, and it has a hard time addressing like quality changes in the goods. And so for these reasons, like basically the CPI is usually biased upwards. And so, we go over this. Obviously, we teach this in the lesson plan, and then to sort of make this real, we start the lesson by looking at the iPhone prices over time and adjusting them for inflation. Then we say, okay, what if you wanted to buy an iPhone before 2007? Like, what if you wanted to buy this iPhone before one was invented? How would you go about doing it? And that's where we introduce this advertisement from 1991. And we have the students build one, basically take all the components that you would need to buy an iPhone, or to build the equivalent of an iPhone in 1991, and see how much it would cost. Let me show you the student activity sheet here. So here they have to build it, and then they have to get the price and adjust it for inflation to see how much it would cost to, obviously if you built this out, it would be like, massive. So it obviously wouldn't be as good as an iPhone, but, just a theoretical exercise to figure it out and how much it would cost. And I can't remember how much if you build it, how much it costs, but I think it's like $6,000, somewhere in that range, to buy all the items, from 1991 that you need for an iPhone. And so it's just a nice, fun illustration of, or at least I think it's fun illustration of, this bias of new goods. Like, it's hard to conceive of new goods, before they come out. Okay. All right. So then our last day is, the hardest day. And what we're trying to do in this last day is try to get students to think, okay, how can you beat or, survive inflation, or who wins and loses in a inflationary environment? And so we approach this, on three fronts: wages, savings, and borrowing. And, this is aimed at the high school level, like general econ high school level. So we don't want to make it too complex. And so with wages, all we're trying to get students to understand is the difference between nominal and real wages. And so that essentially, if your wages are not rising as fast as inflation, you're taking a pay cut. And again, this is, I think, important for people to understand, to realize, okay, my wages need to keep up with inflation. Otherwise, my purchasing power is going down. All right. And so I've lost a lot of friends, not really, but, by explaining to people over the past 2 years that they've been taking pay cuts. My wife got a raise at work and she was like, oh, she was so happy. She came home, oh, I got a 5% raise. And I'm like, well, actually with inflation, you still took a pay cut since inflation is running at 9%. For whatever reason, she didn't think that, was an appropriate comment, to rain on her parade. But, that's the difference between real and nominal wages. Same thing with savings. Your savings need to increase by the rate of inflation. Otherwise, your savings are slowly being eaten away. And then the trickiest one is with borrowing and lending. And so we have a video. We have multiple videos in this day. So we have a video trying to explain, which end you want to be on. With inflation, with unexpected inflation, it's much better to be a borrower. So you borrow money and you get inflation. Now the money you have to pay back is worth less. And then with deflation, of course, this is the advantage of lenders, because now the money people pay back is worth more. And so these are like tough things to understand. But again, what we're hoping that students take away from this is like to at least understand that with inflation, their wages and their savings really need to keep up with it. Otherwise, it's slowly being eaten away. And so we have multiple videos to try to illustrate this. This is one video that we just made. And again, I'll just sort of give you the highlights. But basically what this video does is it goes through time and it gives you different specific scenarios. Okay. And you have to ask the students, okay, what would you like to do in this scenario? So the first scenario is the 1890s. Would you like to borrow money? Would you like to be a borrower or would you like to be a lender in this time period? And it gives you the historical context. The next scenario, we go to Social Security payments and we ask, where is it? Question. Yeah. Post World War II. And basically we asked, would you like your Social Security payments adjusted for inflation? Basically, would you like your income adjusted for inflation, to go up with inflation? And of course, the answer here is yes, because there's actually a big inflationary period right after the war. And then the final scenario is Venezuela. Where's Venezuela? Oops, sorry, somehow I got out of here. The final scenario is Venezuela, and they have to decide what to do with their savings. And yes, here it is. You have 1,000 bolivars. Should you transfer it to another currency or keep it in Venezuela? And the answer is here, you want to transfer it because Venezuela experiences hyperinflation over these next 2 years. And actually your $1,000 by the end of it, by the end of this 6-year period or 5-year period, actually goes down to being worth nothing. And again, so this is just trying to get students thinking about the different scenarios and what happens to their money in these scenarios. Okay. So we have a couple of videos. We have another video just explaining that borrowing and lending. And then what we developed is what I'm calling the final boss of the unit. And so this will walk you through a bunch of different scenarios, and you have to decide what you want to do with your money. So it's going to give you the wage scenario, the saving scenario, and the borrowing scenario. The link there is in the chat. And this is sort of incorporates everything from the lesson plan, because you need to understand that last day. And you basically need to understand where inflation comes from. You have to make guesses about what inflation is going to be. All right, so I will give you, let's see, I'll give you, I don't know, 5 minutes, 6 minutes. I'll give you a while because this is a longer interactive to play this interactive. And post your final bank balance in the chat. And then maybe the top three bank balances will get, I'll send you some stickers. So SA Corral is asking about Nearpod. Yeah, we may be adding Nearpod. That's definitely something that we're looking to do. I say in the next 6 months with all our lesson plans is have a Nearpod version. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's on the near term horizon, but it's on the medium term horizon, probably by the beginning of next school year. Yeah, Dustin. So we sort of cover that. So we do delve into the central bank monetary policy, and we talk about there are other certainly short-term determinants for inflation. But you know, since this is aimed at high school, so we talk about the different determinants in that I think the third day. But since this is aimed at high school, sort of we think of the big you know, the big lever as still being, you know, monetary policy from the central bank. Okay, so it looks like the highest are Eric, Tara, and then I think we have a tie. Becca sent it just to me. Becca and Sharon. So you all can email me if you'd like to get some MRU swag. Email me your address and I'll send you some stickers and maybe some Zimbabwe dollars. So okay, that's the overview of all the different things that we have, or not all, but you know, sort of the highlights. And let me just put this resource link. Like I said, you'll get the slides. And not that there's that much in the slides beyond the lesson plan, but you'll get the slides. And then you'll get like a certificate as well. And if I'm signed into MRU.org and I click on the lesson link, should they open or they be? I believe you're emailed a link. So you request the unit plan and then you are emailed access to that unit plan. Okay. All right. Any final questions or comments? If you'd like to attend a future event, visit our teacher trainings page linked in the description. Sign up for our 6-day Money and Inflation unit plan here. Or you could check out our playlist of videos aligned to CEE economic standards.